Okay, it's 5 minutes after 10 o'clock. It's December 11th, 2020, and you are here for a Zoom meeting, stakeholder meeting to discuss a number of revised documents of guidance for you all. There are no rules on the agenda today, so I am actually going to be quiet in a minute and hand it over to Amanda Collins. I just wanted to set the stage since y'all are used to seeing me here. My name is Shana Horton. I am the agency's rules attorney. The same rules as always apply here today. This is being recorded. So when you would like to ask a question or make a comment, we encourage that. Use the raise your hand button and you will be called on, and then you may unmute yourself and ask your question or make your comment. And as you begin, do please say your name and who you represent or who you're with each time you speak. And that's just helpful for all of us on the call because there are so many participants to see who's making the comment, and also it's helpful for the recording. What else? So today we're talking about advisories, and some of you may know Amanda Collins already because she's been working with SIPI this year. She's waving, but she was formerly with Audit. So she's been with the agency a while. However, her new-ish role is with the Strategic Initiatives and Project Improvement. Anyway, SIPI. And in that role, as we go through and make all of these rule changes and review all of the rules, of course, we're going to have to also, on a parallel track, review all of the advisories that are related and make sure that they are consistent and updated through today's date with what we're doing with the rules. And just giving them a once over every few years is a good idea anyway. Today, there are, I believe, a dozen that you have been given for your review and comment and questions. And so with that, I will hand it over to Amanda.
Hello, good morning. Are you ready? All right. My name is Amanda Collins, as Shana has introduced me. I am the Associate Director of SIPI, which is the Strategic Initiatives and Performance Improvement. Try saying that about 4 times over. Before I start today's stakeholder meeting, I would like to provide a little background about myself. I started as an auditor in the Houston Regional Office in 2009. I've been with TABC for 11 years. I was able to work my way up and was promoted in 2014 to Audit Regional Supervisor in Region 2, which is North Texas in Arlington, located in Arlington, Texas. And in spring of 2020, I was given the opportunity to transition into SIPI. And now I am in Austin, so I'm happy to be here. Today, I will be presenting to you 3 draft marketing practice advisories and a memo listing 12 advisories that we will be recommending for repeal. But before we start with the first agenda item, I would like to provide a small background to why TABC is currently reviewing its marketing practice advisories. In 2019, the Sunset Advisory Commission recommended for TABC to identify regulatory requirements and processes in need of additional clarification or explanation in its rules. TABC decided to take that recommendation a step further and included marketing practice advisories in that initiative. Throughout a course of several meetings, subject matter experts from audit and investigation, tax and marketing practices, legal services, and SIPI conducted a comprehensive review of all 63 marketing practice advisories. And we determined changes that were needed for those advisories, repeal, update, and consolidation. In the fall of 2020, a work group was created to revise, update, and review advisories that are up for revision. Similar to rules, TABC applied the same approach in terms of scheduling, drafting, internal review, and stakeholder input. Now, we're going to get started in the first agenda item. Let me All right. on the agenda item is limits on wine festival events. A draft copy of the new proposed advisory was emailed to stakeholders and stakeholder representatives on October 22nd, 2020. Updates have been made to the advisory based on input received and is now being presented for a second time. The advisory is meant to address questions TABC has received about permissible practices when conducting a wine festival event, including how to conduct sales and divide the proceeds. The advisory also addresses permissible sponsorship agreements received by a nonprofit entity. Are there any questions in regards to this advisory? And I will scroll through the advisory so that everyone can have a better view.
Hello, this is Bob Hunt with Molson Coors Beverage Company. I do not see the raise your hand option on my screen, so I apologize for barging in.
Thank you, Bob.
The quick question, and congratulations to your new position. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm having a little difficulty on the audio here, but I'll try to push through. The quick question is, does the winery have to be Texas-based or any licensed in any state? We believe it's the second, but we just want to confirm. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Bob. I will refer that question to Dr. Thomas Graham. Thomas, are you on the line?
I'm here. Good morning, everybody. Bob, this is actually targeted really at Texas wineries, because Texas wineries have the ability to utilize our winery festival permit, which is something that is issued to those wineries. But it really would work for both parties. If you look at the first option, it lays out two options, really. One being if a retail permit is held and all the wineries' products are sold through that retail permit. And the second option being the wineries utilize their own wine festival permits to participate in the event. So the second option, the one where the wineries have their own permits, again, that permit's only available to Texas in-state wineries. But the first option, where everything goes through retail, that could work for out-of-state wineries to participate in these types of events.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Thomas.
Thank you, Thomas and Shanna. Thank you.
And I'm going to wait just a minute, just in case if there's any other questions or if someone raises their hand before we move forward with agenda item number 2. Okay. Item number 2, excuse me while I get to the draft. All right. Item number 2 is using media to advertise alcoholic beverages, currently known as Common Media Issues Advisory, that is on our website. The elements of this advisory is still the same. Current practices have not changed. The advisory was revised to clarify the responsibility of those that develop and disseminate advertisements on behalf of an industry member. The advisory was also updated to include social media such as Instagram, Facebook, in the scope of media advertisements, and highlight the limits of content within an advertisement. So keep in mind, this advisory was initially drafted in 2005 before social media exploded and became a big form of advertisements and getting connected with the public. Is there any questions in regards to this draft advisory? I'm going to wait 1 minute to see if we have a hand raised. I see that we have a hand raised. Bob Hunt, do you have a question, or is it from your previous question?
I do have a question. Thank you, Shanna. A couple of questions. One, with respect to the liability for the agent's activities, we're thinking about if there's a way to try to limit the agent's liabilities to items directly prescribed by the energy industry member, we don't want to have to be responsible for an agency's an agent's mistakes, not agencies, but an agency mistake if they do something that is beyond what we had prescribed for them. And so we wanted you to be aware of that concern with respect to that. I could go through a couple more if we want to discuss that and hold off.
Thank you, Bob. That is very helpful. We will take that information and have an internal discussion, and I will follow up with you to get the additional scenarios that you are referencing.
Okay. The second question I have, I noticed that outdoor signs, displays, billboards, and vehicle stickers and magnets, this advisory does not include that. Is there going to be any updates along the lines of outdoor advertising as far as advisory updates?
Thank you for your question. There is currently an advisory out on our public website that speaks to outdoor advertising. I will go ahead and defer that question over to Thomas Graham, and he can expand on that.
Hey, Bob.
Yes.
There is that advisory that she spoke about on the website that's been updated. So take a look at that. As far as big major changes, it talks about the new laws with regard to outdoor advertising, and that now that it's legal, with the one exception being pricing is still prohibited on outdoor signage.
Yeah.
And then there is also the advisory out there that has to do with billboards, and that was updated shortly after last session. So take a look at those and let me know if that answers your questions.
Yeah, I think
if
it does.
not, please
I'm
give
sorry.
me a call back, or we can talk after this meeting.
Yeah, no, I think that does. I just didn't know if that was just triggering that there's going to be a new round of advisories on that. So that answers the question. The third question that we have is with respect to currently a non-alcohol entity can fund the offer so long as no alcohol purchase is required. We want to be able to ensure that that continues. Is that clear in the advisory?
Thomas?
Bob, can you ask me that one more time? I'm not sure I
Yeah,
understood the
yes.
question.
So currently, a non-alcohol entity can fund the offer so long as no alcohol purchase is required. We just want to ensure that that continues. I think it does, but we just wanted to make sure I'm not reading anything differently.
Okay, I think I understand what you're talking about. Okay, so I think, Bob, you're kind of referring to like in the world of coupons, right? And what we consider to be cross promotion coupons. So
Right.
okay, yes, that advisory still exists, and the authority to do that still exists.
Okay, good. And then this is another one, and it's really if we have a situation where a consumer buys a non-alcohol, let's say, logoed sweater, and by doing so, they get another branded, let's say, T-shirt. We don't want to have a situation where they'd have to pay twice. Is that permissible?
That may be kind of specific versus really applying to this advisory.
Okay.
Let's touch base after this and talk about it.
All right. That's all the questions I had. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Bob.
The next, we have a hand raised by Marcus Schwartz. Good morning, Marcus. I believe you're muted.
Oh,
There
thank
you
you.
go.
I think I was just allowed to unmute. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Two general things, and I realize you're not trying to change anything, so maybe it's wording or just one person reading the previous one versus this newest draft. But I'd say, for instance, under the advertisements by permittees authorized to sell for on-premise consumption, you've got what your general promotions can be, and then what your general promotions can't do. There are certain general promotions that are exceptions to that. And they were mentioned in the old marketing practices, but for instance, beer buckets or, meal hotel package deals that are really general promotions in nature. I mean, a place could have, buy a hamburger and a beer for $10 and run it all day. And that's our promotion all day, every day type thing. So I don't know if you want to include that or not, but I just draw that to your attention.
Thank
And
you,
then
Mark.
I would say my second comment, maybe a bit more substantive, but under the intra-industry relations, especially the last bullet point for the first paragraph, that upper tier members may not pay for advertised concerts, blah, 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 blah. In the old marketing bulletin, and this is kind of where I'm getting at with an exception, but there were some things in relation to public entertainment facilities, and I believe some of those exceptions would go there. The other deal, and I know this doesn't strictly talk to these, but you've got in some of your other bulletins regarding charities and festivals and how advertisements work there. So that general ban language, I would say, has its own exceptions, some of which are fairly common. So I would just leave it at that for your consideration.
Thank you, Marcus. We will definitely take that into consideration. Both of your recommendations were super helpful, and we will go back and review that. Thank you. Is there any other questions in regards to this particular advisory? Okay. Moving on to item number 3. This is the co-pack, aka alcoholic beverage gift packages advisory. The advisory is currently known as co-packs right now. The advisory was created in 2007 to address upper tier members who have the authority to co-pack ale, malt liquor, wine, and distilled spirits. The advisory was amended in 2014 to address the authority of beer manufacturers having the ability to co-pack as well. So this advisory was revised to reflect the authority of all upper tier members to co-pack alcoholic beverage and to distinguish between permissible practices for pricing, selling, and separating the co-pack. So the content of this advisory has not necessarily changed. We basically revised it for it to be all-inclusive to address all manufacturers that have the ability to co-pack their alcoholic beverages. Are there any questions in regards to this particular advisory? We have a hand raised by Mr. Lively.
Good morning. Lance Lively with the Texas Package Stores Association. The concern we have on this one would be with regard to language that deals with margins, markup, any kind of pricing language. We're trying to get rid of the term excessive discount in the statute right now. And these kinds of things can run afoul of what's in the statute or code against pricing, and that's not something that I think is a good practice. It's relatively broad, and our concern would be that an agent or an auditor could really get in and try to undo or unravel things that are not within the purview of the agency to monitor or police. So any reference to pricing, margins, markup, things like that, we're a little concerned with, and would encourage the agency to work with the industry to try to come up with possible better wording on this one. So with that, I'll be quiet. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lively, and we will take your recommendation into consideration and review that when we revise the updating advisory. Next up, we have Mr. Swartz.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. My comments actually are very much in line with Lance's. The previous marketing practices bulletin mainly said, a retailer may not price these co-packs disproportionately compared to naked bottles. I get that. I have, I guess, some questions whereby I'm not sure exactly what the commission is getting at. For instance, it's said flatly that, upper tier members, not the package stores or the retailers, can, they can cost a co-pack more in proportion and price it proportionally more than they would sell naked bottles, right? And then you've got some language in regards to how the retailers can price and must be priced at the standard markup percentage price of a naked bottle. I'm just not sure what you're getting at there. I think the wording could be better. And just the second statement, markups on co-packs cannot exceed the retailer's average markup percentage. Is that for other co-packs, or is that average markup percentage for naked bottles? Or I'm not sure what's going at there. If it's for other co-packs, then effectively what you're saying is you can only have one markup percentage for all co-packs, because the minute you change one, then that's going to bring another one above the average, and it would be bad. So for instance, let's say there's a bunch of co-packs that a retailer has that aren't selling well. They want to get them out, so they drop the price. Well, by dropping the price, they've dropped the average markup price for all co-packs, and now all their regular ones are off. So I think there's some issues with how it's worded now. Thank you.
Marcus, I appreciate you pointing that out for us. We're still trying to tweak that language. I did not get to hear Lance's comments just a minute ago, but he and I did talk about this a couple days ago, and I know if they haven't changed too much, then I kind of have an idea of where he was going with it. Our intent is just to say that if the price of a co-pack to the retailer from the wholesaler is the same as a naked bottle, the retailer shouldn't take it and mark it up some large percentage and then get something of value out of it, right? So we don't want the retailer getting an extra $10 out of this co-pack, because it's not intended for him to get a big benefit out of it. It's intended to attract consumer sales, not increase his margins. And that's been the intent since the original advisory and that language that was in there. So we'll go back and revisit this language and try to get something that, one, doesn't prohibit retailers from marking them down. Two, that, and this is one of the things Lance and I talked about, is how do we say that you can mark it up proportion? How do we talk about markups without having a hard number and then creating an instance where our folks decide after taking a look at it that the markup percentage is 2 points too high, and then we write a ticket or something. And we obviously don't want that to happen either. We're just trying to prevent some kind of strange large markup where the retailer's taking home some gigantic profit on the thing because it's a benefit and was intended to be sold to him that way, versus intended to attract consumer sales, which is the point of the co-pack to begin with. So we'll look at that language and see if we can't maybe get some input from you and anybody else that wants to help us with that.
I appreciate that, Thomas. And I know you're not trying to go there. And obviously, like a lot of this stuff, the devil's in the details. So I'm happy to help as I can.
Perfect. I appreciate it. We'll be in touch then, and let's do some tweaking, and we'll bring something back.
Shayna?
Yeah, if I could just, I just wanted to piggyback on what Thomas just said. And the same goes for, for whenever I'm presenting rules to y'all. If you have an issue with the way something is worded and you think it could be worded better, the most helpful thing you can do is to give us the language that you think would work and send it in an email. And that way we can, if it works for us, maybe we can just use what you've given us, or if it doesn't work for us, maybe we can modify it a little bit and still make it work. So for all of these, I would really encourage you all to come up with some language that you would like and send it to Amanda and copy Thomas.
Thank you, Shayna. That's a very good point. We have a hand raised by Bob Hunt, and then Amy Harrison, we will raise your hand. Bob.
Yes, thank you again. Quick question. Is there a dollar limit on the item within the gift pack?
As of now, no, there is not a dollar limit to the item in the gift pack. Thomas Graham, Thomas, you can expand on that.
Bob, yeah, Amanda's right. The statute doesn't dictate a dollar limitation for a co-pack.
Thank you. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you. And next up is Amy Harrison. Amy, are you able to unmute yourself?
So sorry. Greetings all. And Thomas, I'm kind of a big picture kind of gal. Can you kind of give us a little history about what's brought this about and what you are seeing so that we understand the goal?
Sure. So this really is just an update and trying to update our language, as Amanda talked about, for all of our advisories and clean them up, conform them with the new agency standards, and just add in a few little changes. So the intent with this thing is to keep it really the same as the original, which discussed part of the markup percentage and when it can become a problem. And then the real only addition to this, outside of just rewording, is we've clarified in here that retailers can break apart those co-packs and give away whatever is in the co-pack for free to the consumer or throw it away. That's one of the things that's come up over the years, where at the end of the season, the retailers may have a co-pack sitting around with glassware taking up too much shelf space. They want to separate them apart and either throw the glasses out or give them away. So we wanted to make sure we put that language in this advisory stating that that was legal to do, provided they didn't take the glassware and sell it. So that's really the two major changes here.
So has the commission seen violations or received complaints in these areas that you felt like more definitivity was required?
I don't think we have when it comes to markups. We've really, if we've seen problems, I haven't seen them recently. I know that I think when this co-pack was originally released, that's part of what Dexter had some cases at the time, and I think that's why that language was in there initially.
Right.
So as far as the markups, I haven't seen anything recently. The co-part breaking, or the co-pack, like breaking them apart, that comes up every year at the end of the season, and we just wanted to put it in writing so that it's clear to our folks and to the industry that it's an okay practice, so that we didn't have complaints on that, or that we take the wrong direction with it or something like that.
So what I'm hearing is that it's really more about the packaging than it is the pricing.
Well, okay. Yeah. I mean, in terms of changes, it's really, we're just updating the language is more than anything, I think, is our real goal here. But in terms of the packaging versus pricing, right, we just wanted to point out a couple things about prices, but it is stuff that's in the current advisory. It's just kind of restructured.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to give it a couple of seconds just in case there's one more hand raised, or if there's one more question before we move on to the final agenda item. Okay, so agenda item number 4 is recommendation to repeal advisories. We have 12 advisories that we will be recommending for repeal. These advisories were identified as out of date due to a legislative change or obsolete due to the drafting of a new advisory that has or will be updated to reflect the current law. Is there any questions in regards to the advisories that we are recommending for repeal? I'm going to give it a couple more seconds. Okay, no questions at the moment. Well, that concludes the 4 agenda items that we have in regards to advisories for today's stakeholder. If there are no further questions, this will conclude today's stakeholder meeting. If you do have questions on any of the advisories, I have made notes to follow up with 4 individuals for your recommendations, so we can make sure that we definitely take that input into consideration when looking back at the advisories. But if you do have questions between now and December 28th, that's about approximately 2 weeks out from today, please do not hesitate to contact me at amanda.collins@tabc.texas.gov or advisories@tabc.texas.gov. Thank you for attending.